Wij gaan kijken, dames en heren, we're going to focus on our next speaker. He's Vice President SAP Success Factors. En hij gaat praten met u over employee experience, total workforce management. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Tim Ringo.
Goedemorgen. That's the last Dutch you will hear from me today. I apologize for that. But it's a shame, really, because I'll let you know something that you probably didn't know, that my last name, Ringo, is actually Dutch, going back to 1636. Everybody in America with the last name Ringo, which isn't a lot of people, are all descended from Philip Ringo, who came from Amsterdam to New Amsterdam in 1636. So just so you know that, you can Google it. There's a place in New Jersey called Ringo's, New Jersey, and it's spelled with an E, so you have to add an OES at the end. But everybody still gets together there every year. Not everybody, but we have a family reunion, and if you want to go, you can go meet lots of other Ringos. You're all related, and you can go to Ringo's, New Jersey to do that. Now, it's really funny. I have been mistaken for Ringo Starr once in my life. So I was flying, this is back when I was a partner in Accenture. I was flying from London to LA on Virgin. And of course, you're going to see loads of celebrities on that flight every time you go. In this particular case, Joe Walsh was sitting across from me. Joe Walsh, the guitarist for the Eagles. You may know him if you're of a certain age. And I thought, that's interesting. But anyway, 12 hours later, get to LA, go to get my bag, and then I go out of the hall, and there's my driver there with a sign that says Ringo, and there's loads of paparazzi, and there's a very excited-looking driver. And I thought, this is interesting. So I walk up, and I say, hello, I'm Mr. Ringo, and I'm here for my ride. And the look of disappointment on the driver's face was classic. I wish I had a phone with a camera back then. It was 15 years ago. Anyway, all the paparazzi melted away. Get in the car, complete silence from the driver. And then he says, after about 10 or 15 miles, he goes, Mr. Ringo, he goes, I have a telephone number here. It's from Mr. Walsh. He says he'd like you to give him a call next time you're in town. So I was mistaken for Ringo Starr. My wife said, well, you should have taken it. You should have given Joe Walsh a call. It's like, no, I'm not really an Eagles fan. So anyway, so that's a true story. True story. Everybody in America with the last name Ringo is related to Philip Ringo, who came over from Amsterdam in 1636. Anyway, right, so rethinking the employee experience. Just before I get started, I've been writing a book. I've researched for 2 years. Probably a lot of you know that people productivity is steadily going down for about the past 10 years. It's either flattened or going down in almost every region of the world. And I was really fascinated by this when I read it. It was an OECD paper predicting that this will eventually impact the annual average rate of GDP growth. It's a quite serious thing if people productivity is going down. And sure enough, through the research and talking to lots of people around the world, this is a problem that everybody's focused on. So I thought, right, I'm going to research this. I'm going to write my next book on this. And it's really interesting because the two things that I thought would have the least impact on people productivity, it was way down my list, not that important. One was employee experience, and two was employee well-being. I thought, those are just hygiene factors. Those are just things that are kind of, you do if you can. But throughout my research, and my wife kept sticking papers in my hand to read, throughout the research, just over and over and over again, two of the things that was the biggest impact right now on people productivity is your experience at work and your well-being. And that those two things rapidly moved up my list and ended up in my top 6 things to fix people productivity. So what I want to do is I'm going to tell a little bit of a sad story initially, but I'm hoping to convince you all to be optimists in the end. But I'm going to tell you the pessimist story first. But let's just take a look. So, and this is part of the sad story, organization perception versus workforce reality. So 69% of organizations believe employees are engaged. Well, employees, it's 34% or less. And you see this. You've heard this. You know it. You see it in your own organization. 71% of organizations believe employees are satisfied with their benefits, and we were just talking about that a moment ago in the very little bit of Dutch I could pick up. 48% of employees don't agree. I mean, that's a huge gap. And then you get to, organizations say, well, 81% say that employees would recommend their company as a great place to work. You know, you always win those awards and those sorts of things. I'm not sure how meaningful those are. But when you ask employees, it's vastly different, right? So this is the situation at the moment where organizations perceive themselves to be exceptionally good at the whole employee experience from end to end. We've put in new technology, we've put in new processes, aren't we great? Well, guess what? The workforce reality is very, very different. The experience gap is huge, and it's a major impact on people's ability to get stuff done at work. So let's look at that. So 3 key areas, and we're only going to have time to talk about 2 today: the physical experience, the technology experience, and the cultural experience. These 3 things come together to be the elements of people's experience at work, right? And we're going to talk about today just 2 of them. So we're going to talk about cultural experience and the technology experience. And we'll start off with the technology experience first, because this is a major barrier to people engagement and productivity at the moment. So this is called the productivity paradox. It's actually been around since the 70s, because periodically, since about the 1960s, we've seen people productivity go up, people productivity go down, and it seems whenever there's a technology inflection, we see people productivity go down. Now, the problem at the moment is it just keeps going down and it's not coming back up again. So this has got to be quite a serious situation. So it's called the productivity paradox. Fantastic technology, but where's all the productivity? We're not seeing it at the moment. So if you look at this graph, that 0 back there at the very beginning, that's the year 10,000 BC. And at the end of that blue line is 1780. So between 10,000 BC and 1780, there was almost 0 human technology progress. We had fire, we had the wheel, we had paper, and a printing press, and that was about it. But then you get to mid-1700s, late 1700s, steam engine, all of these other things come online, just massive amounts of technology progress, and it's just accelerated. It's almost logarithmic. It just keeps getting faster and faster and bigger, and the impact is huge. Now, unfortunately, if you're a human, this is you. So humans are getting more and more overloaded, and therefore getting more and more impaired by technology at work. Getting impaired by technology at work. And it's because of this. The amount of investment and time spent in organizations aligning people to new technology, to the latest new app that you're rolling out, isn't happening. We had a lot more investment at the beginning of the internet revolution, but today there isn't a lot of investment. The other thing, and the OECD talk about this, is organizations are not changing their structure, their organization structure and processes to align people to technology. So we're pushing all this technology at them, and it's actually making them less productive, lower performing, and it's just getting worse, right? So it's not a great situation. So what you end up with is what the OECD, this is a graph from 2016, they've redone this graph for 2018, and it's virtually the same. But you can see, going from 2011 out to 2060, their prediction is the average annual rate of GDP growth is going to steadily go down. And GDP, as you know, 2/3 of the GDP number is human effort, human contribution. And that's why this graph is going down, no other reason. It's human productivity is impacting this for what we just talked about. The technology we're not aligning to people, and we're not changing our organization structures to meet that. Now, this is what's called the pessimist view. So these are economists who believe that this is what's going to happen. But what I've seen, and probably what you've seen, is I do think organizations are starting to change their structure. They are changing their processes. They are starting to invest in aligning people to technology. So what does that look like? Well, one thing it doesn't look like is just working harder. In fact, it's been proven that the more hours that humans put in and the more people you throw at the productivity problem, you make it worse. That's why you see organizations and governments starting to experiment with the 4-day week, because it's actually finding you improve people's productivity when you go to a 4-day week. And we can go into all the details of that, but we don't have time today. But this graph shows, this is from Deloitte, just last year, that shows that the more hours that you throw at the productivity problem, you actually make it worse. So working harder is not going to work. And the other thing is, if you look at the workplace, 1990, I started my career at Anderson Consulting back in 1989. By 1990, this is kind of what my desk looked like. You had a big clunky PC or Mac on it. And then you go forward to 2020, 30 years later, and it basically looks the same. There's no difference. It's a PC screen with a mouse and keyboard. And that's how you interact with the technology. But if you go to your home looks like this. You've got your Alexa. We've got a refrigerator at my house that my wife says is smarter than me. It knows when we run out of certain things and orders it for us and those sorts of things. So at home, our technology is making us more productive. That is true. So if you've got an Alexa, at least in my house, Alexa is going all morning while my wife is asking her various questions about the train, the weather, blah, 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 things that are making us much more productive at home. But when you get to work, it looks like that. That is a massive difference, right? And this is part of the problem. This is part of the problem. The employee experience does not look like the home experience as we get more and more gadgets at home. Big problem. However, in my book, it's called Solving the Productivity Puzzle. It comes out in February next year. I've come up with an equation, quote unquote. Getting right people, right skills, right place, right time, right motivation. Guess what? Employees love that, right? If they know what their job is and that they're in the right job at the right time, doing the thing that really that they're really passionate about, guess what you get? You get what I call PEIP, people engagement, innovation, and performance. So if you put in place in your organization the processes and the technology and the mindset that says we're going to get right people, right skills, right place, right time, right motivation, we can flip that curve. We can flip that curve that the OECD have come out. I think we can get historic people productivity, particularly when we take PEIP and we multiply it times the emerging technologies, AI, machine learning, people harnessing technology like we do at home to make ourselves better at work. And this is what the OECD are missing right now. They are not seeing that this is what's happening. Your HR organizations, your IT organizations are putting in place the technologies to get right people, right place, right time, right skills, right motivation. They're putting in place the processes. They're investing in aligning people to this approach. And I think we're going to have, and I'm in the optimist camp, we're going to see at the end if you're in the optimist camp as well when we do a poll, but I think we're going to see historic people productivity because this is happening. When I did my research, now is everybody? No. 10% of companies, I think, at the moment have achieved this approach, but people are moving very quickly by, installing technologies like SuccessFactors, which creates the processes that allow people to experience it. So if you're an employee, this is a great experience, right? Your organization knows what skills you have, they know your motivations, and they use that to put you in a place so you can flourish, so that you can be productive. This is what the OECD are missing at the moment. So let's have a look at some technology. Let's just see how things have changed. First of all, if you look at HR technologies or any technologies these days, everything is a lot more usable. Things are intuitive. The things we use at home are very intuitive, and so the things at work are starting to become that way as well. We're starting to see applications in work that are mobile, inviting, almost beautiful, things that are really, really kind of motivate you into using them. Humanize, this is key. It used to be not long ago, technology was designed and coded for the convenience of the IT engineer. Now technology is being coded for the convenience of humans. The model is flipped. And again, the OECD are missing this, that technology is becoming much more humanized and something that will put a smile on your face and help you at work. And then, as I've been saying, it makes you better. The new approach to work, the new work experience is all about making you better, making you more productive. So what does that look like? So if you look at this would be my screen in SuccessFactors. You can see it's kind of a really nice, inviting situation. And it can be very individual. I can have my own sort of links down here for things that I want. Maybe I put the share price on there, those sorts of things. But then also, if you're a manager, you can add this. You can put all your information about your team. It's 2 clicks away. And you've got all the information you need to get your people in the right place, right time, right skills, right motivation, right? And the technology makes this easier. In fact, it's becoming so easy that you can literally just type, for instance, in this case, you could just type comp into the keyword, and up comes the compensation system, and then there's your team, and you click on that team member, and you get that person's compensation. And boom, I can go in, I've got everything there I need. I can provide bonus, RSU shares, merit increase. I can do all of that. HR doesn't need to get involved. They'll check it to make sure I did it right, but I can do it. I don't need anybody else to do that for me. I control and run, and I'm in charge of the motivation of my team. And it's becoming mobile. So you've got these mobile apps. So a lot of the things that I do, certainly with my team, because we're all virtual around Europe, Middle East, and Africa, is using the phone, because I'm on the plane a lot. And in fact, one of the biggest, most popular used apps in any organization is your org chart app, right? And being able to use that down at the phone. I mean, this creates lots of productivity. It seems kind of silly and not a big thing, but it's a huge thing. Having a really easy to use and clever org chart app, that can improve people productivity, believe it or not. It's a very popular way to get people productivity. Conversational. So very soon, we're going to start being able to talk to our HR system. In fact, I don't even think it's going to be an HR system anymore. It's going to be your HR digital assistant. And you can talk to it, and you can go with the chat bot, and the chat bot can help you find anything that you might need. So in fact, we could look at the future and see what you think about this. This is what the future might look like.
Give me my sports update.
Here is your sports update. In NFL. On Sunday, the Panthers beat the Cardinals, 30-20. They'll play this Sunday at 9:05 p.m. in Los Angeles against the Rams.
Alexa,
In
stop.
NBA.
Alexa, launch Success Factors.
Welcome to Success Factors running on Echo. You currently have 1 approval and no deadline critical items.
Alexa, ask Success Factors to get my HR update.
You currently have 1 approval for John Barnard, 2 learning objectives to be completed by December 31st, and 12 end-of-year reviews to complete.
So you get the point. Now, this doesn't exist today, but many organizations, that is where they're going. They're going to that sort of, it almost becomes performance support. It's something that you talk to. It's something that goes and does things for you. It understands you. It knows you. And that's really where things are going. So that technology experience is going to be very, very different in the very near future. So let's talk about the cultural experience. So turbocharging the employee experience. Let's talk about workforce diversity. This was the third thing in my book that I got really excited about, was the fact that we can gain productivity from just looking at the workforce and tapping into different pools that we maybe haven't done before. So this is hopefully me up here in the corner when I'm about 85, so hopefully I'm doing that. But in all seriousness, the fastest growing workforce demographic in North America right now is the 70 and over workforce demographic. It's going to go from 14% last year to 24% by 2022. And that's happening all around the world. And the fact is, people are healthier and able to work later in life. And we need to leverage this. So instead of retiring people, we should be finding them new roles in the organization to help improve productivity. Let's use their experience. Let's give them new roles that are very, very different. Let's not retire them. This is a huge pool of potential productivity. So leverage the experience and skills of 6 generations in work at once. Next year, we're going to have that for the first time in history. We're going to have 17-year-olds through to 75-year-olds are going to be a full-fledged 6 generations in work, and we want to leverage that. The next one is the feminization of work. So by 2030, it's predicted that the majority of the workforce globally will be women. So increasing amount of women coming back into work or coming into work. We want to accelerate that, right? Because that's a huge pool of productivity. It's absolute fact that when you get men and women in fairly senior positions taking decisions, you get better decisions. Having that kind of male-female dynamic creates huge amounts of productivity and getting better decisions by not just having all women or all male. You want to have that mix. And the last group that I'm really excited about is this whole idea. I think you've heard of autistic spectrum disorder, right? It's recently been discovered that these 2 guys from my hometown in Dayton, Ohio, the Wright brothers, were almost certainly autistic. And they went from knowing nothing about flight to solving the problem in two and a half, 3 years, solved the problem that nobody could solve. In fact, at that point when they were building their Wright Flyer, mainly people were saying, we will never be able to solve flight. We don't understand lift, the physics of lift. They understood it. They came at it from a different standpoint. They said the physics of lift had been solved. It was the control of the airplane was the problem. So as you might know, they invented wing warping, which allowed them, once the plane went up, to control it, and that's how they fixed flight. 2.5 years, they figured that out. Because they had different brains, they were able to innovate in a way that other people weren't. And in fact, in SAP, we're saying that 10% of our workforce by the next couple of years is going to be on the autistic spectrum. 1% of the world's population is predicted to be autistic, but we're going to have 10% of our workforce because different brains drives innovation. So if you take these three things together with PEIP, you really turbocharge productivity. So this workforce diversity, pulling people in that you might not have had pulled in your workforce in the past. And let's just finish with what I think when we look back in 5 years, Qualtrics SAP acquisition, this is going to be massive, right? This is going to be seen as an incredibly astute acquisition because we can start to use X&O data, experience data, so in the HR world, engagement, candidate experience, those sorts of things, with operational data, and we can start to be able to take better decisions when it comes to improving the employee life cycle. Every moment in the employee life cycle, we should be making very, very good for that employee. We should be making it exceptional to improve their productivity, but also their engagement. And if you come to my talk later this afternoon in Zalen 22 at 12:20, I'm going to talk about workforce experience from the standpoint of well-being, and I can go a lot more detail on that, but I'll have to pause there on this one and hand it over. So what I want to do is I want to ask, if we can get the poll up, I gave you the pessimist case, and then I gave you the optimist case, which is mine, in my book, Solving the Productivity Puzzle. Let me ask you, are you an optimist after this talk? Are you a pessimist, or are you not sure? Could we have that poll up?
Yeah.
Would that be all right?
Yeah. Oh, lots of optimists
Yay.
here. Ah, very good. What are yo?
Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
All right, one round of applause. Tim Ringo. Well, Tim. Just some
Questions.
quick questions,
Yeah.
because that's fun to do. Lots of optimists here in the room.
That's good.
So that's good. So 4G is working again. Yes, 4G is working again. But Marika, you've got some questions, huh?
Yes, I would like to start with Bert de Vries's question. Is this a technological revolution or a mind shift revolution? Productivity has to do with tools, but also with autonomy.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question. I think, having looked at it in detail, I think the technology side of things is solved. I think we've got the stuff that we need.
Right.
This is a mindset shift.
Right, yeah.
This is thinking, how do we integrate that employee experience of right people, right time, right place, right skills, right motivation? And that's a mindset.
But it's also got to do with the boss's mindset then.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to give you some autonomy,
Yeah.
because we got some great tools here, but if I'm not allowed to use it, or if I'm,
Yeah.
every time I'm trying something new, I'm cut off by the ankles,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to work.
It won't, and the thing that has to happen is we have to push the center of gravity of managing talent down to the manager and the employee. It can't sit with HR.
right.
There's no more saying, oh, well, I couldn't do this because of HR. No, you're the manager. You can now run the show,
Right,
And
right.
that's good.
Right.
Yeah, there are some questions about productivity. So Nico asks, why should it be bad if it declines?
Well,
And is it realistic to expect ever increasing pace
of
of
growth.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be happy that we still have growth?
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I make it somewhat binary to make the point. The fact is, productivity does go up and down. The problem at the moment is it's on an extended downward, and nobody can figure that out, right? That's a problem. And no, there's times when productivity goes down, then it leaves opportunity to go up, and it almost always goes up more than it was before. It's just we need to get through this particular situation as quickly as we can, because it's going to get worse if we don't.
All right. And then Jan, with the final question, do you think SAP is already where you want it to be? What is the best success example you've experienced?
We are on that journey, and I would say, and I'd have to ask Stefan, our HR director, but I would say we're 80% of the way there.
Okay.
And that's amazing, because it's taken 3 years. This is not easy to do. It takes a while.
Right.
So, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, warm round of applause for Tim Ringo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.